Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us this evening. I'm Elise Adler, Director of Events for Parnassus Books. We are delighted to share tonight's event featuring award-winning author Lily King. Remember, you can purchase copies of Writers and Lovers with signed bookplates from Parnassus Books, and we'll go ahead and put that link in the Facebook comments for you. We will be taking audience questions tonight, which you can also put in the Facebook comments. We are extra thrilled tonight because Lily is in conversation with award-winning author and co-owner of Parnassus Books, Ann Patchett. I'm so pleased to turn it over to Lily and Ann.
Thanks, Elise. Hi, Lily.
Hi. Hi, Ann. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I'm good. Yeah.
How's that virtual tour going?
Well, it goes on, doesn't it?
Yeah,
How's
but
it going for you?
they go on and on when it's not virtual too. I mean, this is all I really want to talk about, Lily. Let's start here. How's this pandemic working for you?
Okay. Well, not I don't like the pandemic in any possible shape or form. For me personally, it's grounded me here in Portland, Maine, where I live, and in some, there's the silver lining of that because it's less hotel rooms and less travel, because I had a book come out right when the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
I also got my children came home from college, and so all that grieving I was doing for being an empty nester, I got to just put in a trunk and not have to deal with for a long time. And so those are my personal silver linings. But obviously, just seen a lot of people get very sick, personally and obviously, and all over the world. And I'm really excited about the vaccination and getting mine and having this all behind us.
Yes. Yeah. But I do, I mean, all moral implications aside, because it is unquestionably a horrible thing, as an artist, I'm so curious about how this experience has been staying put, and if you feel like it's changed you, and if you feel when you're vaccinated and everyone's vaccinated and everything's fine, will this experience change the way you live your life going forward?
Yeah, it's such a good question.
I'm asking it because I'm trying to figure it out, and I genuinely just want to know.
I know, and I want to know that.
This is what we would be talking about.
I guess I'm of two minds, I think, of it. In some ways, I can see just kind of flicking a switch and carrying on in a way, and kind of resuming my old life. But I think it will be very hard. I feel very unaccustomed. Going to a dinner party sounds like just a terrifying social thing. I mean, just I can't even imagine. I'd stay up all night, reviewing exactly who said what and what, so I don't know, but I have to say I have been doing, I feel like I had a book come out, and I've had a ton of events, and I haven't been in the middle of a book, and I haven't been dug in my head and introverted and, really taking advantage of this time that I don't feel like I have. So in that way, I might have to just give myself, another pretend pandemic, because to go back and try to do some work. What about for you?
Well, yeah, it's funny when you say about the pretend pandemic, because, when you get around, and we're the same age, when you get around a group of people and everybody starts talking about have you been vaccinated? When are you going to get vaccinated? And I always say, I'm going to be the last person in the country to get vaccinated. And people look at me like, are you an anti-vaxxer? Are you afraid? And it's like, no, I just feel like I feel like the least deserving person because I work at home. And two, it's that same thing. Like, I don't think I can go to a dinner party anymore. I think I've lost that skill. I've lost so many social skills in the last year. And I keep saying, I feel like I took my Iron Man suit off and got fat. Like, I'm not going to be able to get back into the Iron Man suit.
I know. I mean, even when I watch something on TV, I just feel like, no, you can't get so close. Don't, it gives me anxiety that these people are just walking in and shaking hands and whispering and putting their lips all close to each other. I feel like I don't know how I'm going to handle that, all of that.
Yeah, but I think that I was that way as a kid.
Mm.
I slowly learned how to be social and outgoing and charming, and I've just reverted back to an agoraphobe.
Yeah,
I mean,
no,
not just an introvert, but yeah.
I was the same way. I always say that I every social skill that I have, I learned from waiting tables, because I was terrified of any kind of public speaking, and public speaking meant talking to more than one person at a time. And yeah, I feel like I've unlearned all of that too.
So what about waiting tables? We can start there.
Mm.
I want to say to people who are watching, when I first read this book, and I can't even remember when I read it, because of course I read it months and months before it came out, and it came out a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I sent you an email and said, have you been reading my mail? Like, were you stealing my mail in the 90s? And you just wrote a book about me. I identified with this book so profoundly that it almost freaked me out a little bit. And there have been some cross currents in that with our work.
There have. I've had so many moments
too. Yeah.
So many moments. I'm so curious. I want to know, like, how, like, what parts, what,
well, the waitressing and the down and out quality, down, as specifically down and out in Cambridge, but just the willingness to have no life at all in order to keep writing.
Yeah.
At an ever advancing age, because of course for me it did not go away once I published a book. Once I published my first book and it sold 6,000 copies,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't like anything changed, except I got the air conditioning fixed on my car.
Right.
Yeah. So
And you keep waiting tables? Did you, what were you doing at that point when your first novel was published?
no, I mean, I was still doing catering. I did not have a job at a restaurant. I was teaching, and I did a lot of freelance work, but I lived in a room.
Yeah.
It was, and I wasn't unhappy about it. Like, I didn't ever expect that things would be different. I just thought from the time I was a kid that to choose this job was to live in a room.
Mm-hmm.
There you go. And I made that choice when I was 12, or, whenever I made it.
Yeah. I never even felt like it was a choice.
Right.
I never, and it was funny to get older, and people, when you graduate from college, people don't really question what you do in your first couple of years, but as I got into my 30s, I started to be aware. I didn't start to question it as much as other people started to question it about me. And I remember, meeting my husband, going home to Cleveland with him, going to a cocktail party with his mom. And I remember her being a little uncomfortable that I was telling, when people asked what I did in Boston, I said that I was a waitress. And I remember, oh, this makes people uncomfortable. You know, this is a choice to be ashamed of. And I didn't really feel that way. I felt like those people who are getting desk jobs, office jobs, 9 to 5, suckers. Like this. But then I started seeing that they started having salaries and I did not. And that was
Health insurance.
Yeah, I kind of started to understand that.
Crazy things like that. Although the flexibility and the rawness of being a waitress. I mean, I can remember I was a waitress at a Fridays in Nashville, and that you could go out on the floor and take care of your tables and come in the back and just sob, heaving sobs, and how everybody in your team would come and they would pat your head and they would say, I'll run your fajitas out for you, you know, and you're pulling it together, and somebody's getting arrested for possession, and somebody's just gotten his girlfriend pregnant again, and you know, everybody, we were just like a quarter inch from the surface all the time. And it's a great place to write from. You know, it's so raw and alive.
Yeah, no, that's really, really true. It's really true. When I started writing about it, one thing that I really remembered a lot of was just the misogyny, you know, especially, you know, I don't know, between the cooks and the waitresses, that could be pretty rough. The disrespect that you got when you went back into the kitchen, sometimes in some restaurants, you know, in some environments that a chef will create, can be really tricky. And then the management can be tricky. The customers can be tricky. I felt like you're just dealing on many planes. You know, there's the office with the manager, and then there's the bartender and that whole world, and then there's the back of the house, then there's the wait station, which is like, you know, your home and your island where you can be safe and where your buddies are and everything. And I don't know, there are just so many different elements to negotiating that world.
Did you understand it as misogyny at the time? Because
No.
I didn't. I mean, I can look back on it now and think, mother of God, that was a lot. But at the time, it was just kind of like whack-a-mole, you know. Somebody felt you up and you smacked them and you kept going, and it was just life.
Yeah. What came back to me was kind of the comments, just the comments about your physical body, and I'm not talking about compliments. You know, like I just kind of remember that, you know, feeling like I was on display and anybody could say anything back there where the customers couldn't hear them, you know. And if you made a mistake, just the fury that could rain down on you. And yeah, but I didn't understand it as misogyny, just as I was thinking about this morning, as in high school. It never occurred to me to say, hey, don't you think we should read some novels by women? My whole high school education was novels by men. 2 short stories by women in my whole 4 years. I never even questioned it.
Yeah, I mean, I always say that I loved Eudora Welty so much because that was the only woman that, you know, we read a Eudora Welty story, and she was alive.
She was one of them.
She was alive and she was a woman. And I was like, oh my God, this is actually a career choice. Look at that. But yeah, never questioned. So, okay, so you go back and you decide to like excavate waitressing. You decide to tap back into that vein. And when I wrote Commonwealth, which was my waitressing novel, it was so easy it was that all of that stuff, it was like just waiting for me to scoop it up. And so I wondered if it was that way for you.
Yes. And I didn't expect it. I was kind of dreading, I didn't think I'd remember the lingo. I just didn't think I'd remember that I'd be able to recreate what it really felt like. And it's so funny, Anne, because this has happened to me twice now, my last two novels. I started working on Euphoria in 2005. It doesn't come out until 2014. And right before it comes out,
Wow.
you published State of Wonder. And I'm like, oh my God, she's written the Scientist in the Jungle book 6 months before I like mine is already in galleys and yours comes out. I'm like, okay, well, that's that. And then I'm working on my little, writer waitressing, older man comes into the restaurant kind of thing.
Famous, right?
He published Commonwealth. And it's so good. And I read those waitressing scenes, which are my very favorite scenes of all of that book. And I'm just like, oh my God, she's done it again. And she's taken the whole step family thing. I mean, I am the one who had the step families, and then you go and write all about it. I haven't even gotten there yet.
It really is like we are dreaming each other's dreams. And I know that feeling so well when you're finishing a book and you read someone's book. I can remember Michael Ondaatje came to the store with his last novel, and I'm completely blanking on the name of it. But it was about, the parents are gone and the much older sister is taking care of the younger brother, who's the narrator of the story.
Okay.
And I said to him, okay, I'm sure you won't read my next novel, but when you do, please know that at this moment, I've finished it. I'm not just blindly ripping you off.
Exactly. That's what was the
More
first
like,
thing I
that's
thought
what
of.
it's called.
Yes. That's what I thought of when I got to those passages. I'm like, I have to write her, but then I felt really uncomfortable. Like, I don't know. It just felt.
No, again, I don't know if it's the age or the circumstance or just that, like I say, we're connected and we're dreaming each other's dreams. Talk about debt, which is where the book starts, because so much of the book revolves around the energy of debt, which is such an obsession of mine. I would just, yeah, it's like that's my biggest fear.
Uh-huh. And have you been there before? Or
No,
just your
no,
biggest
because
fear?
it is my biggest fear. I like to never go into debt, because I've always in my mind thought debt is the thing that would separate me from writing.
Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like I got into debt pretty darn quickly. And nothing like, I mean, Casey is $70,000 in debt. She has college loan debt as well as credit card debt. And I didn't have student debt. But I couldn't make ends meet. I just couldn't. And I mean, I literally lived in a potting shed like Casey.
Did.
And
It is the autobiographical potting shed novel.
yeah, potting shed is definitely autobiographical. It was kind of a different situation. I was actually living with my sister and her new boyfriend. Can you imagine? Like, she's just moved in with her new boyfriend, and she actually lets me live in their potting shed, which had been renovated into a room. And that was honestly, I mean, just the height of generosity. And I lived with them for like 3 years or maybe even longer. Anyway, so I was lucky, but I still, I was in debt. And I was more interested in writing about student debt, because I think that's become, since the 90s, that has become just out of control, and just an incredibly large societal problem that very few people are focusing on or dealing with, and it's something we have got to eradicate. So I wanted her to have that weight, that just terrible feeling of no matter what I do, this will always be with me, you know, and yeah, I mean, and then to choose to try to be a writer, you know, as if you could get out of it that way. Um, so,
So here's the great mystery. I mean, you have crushing debt for Casey. You have crushing grief. Her mother has died. She is alone. She's in a potting shed. She's working this super tough job. She has a dream that she feels like she's aging out of. And yet I kept laughing.
good.
And and there is a tremendous hopefulness and buoyancy in this super sad book. And I just can't figure out how you did that, how you pulled that off. And was that something that you set out to do, to really pull those two threads together? Because that's so hard.
No, I don't, I feel like I don't really, I'm not very conscious about things like tone and humor and you know, I could never like make myself make a funny moment. You know, I think I'd get super self-conscious. It's just the way it came out. You know, I wanted to tell that story, and that was the voice. You know, I found Casey's voice pretty quickly, and then she just started talking like that. You know, and it's sort of the way she saw the world that creates those sort of, you know, layers of tone or mood or feeling. You know, I mean, I was definitely aware of the complexity of feeling and the complexity of any emotion, and uh, sort of the layers of experience that happen in that time of your life. I feel like it's a very multi-layered time where, you know, you can be happy and sad and despairing and hopeful, and like you have access to all of these things, and life is just throwing you new stuff all the time. It's not quite the same as it is now, especially during a pandemic.
Well, we're so protected. You know, success is a buffer from the rest of the world. And when you don't have any money and you're working that hard and you have big dreams that might go either way. That was the other thing about being a waitress. And, you know, being a waitress in Nashville, every single person on the wait staff was just exactly like me.
Uh-huh.
Everybody thought they were passing through on their way to greatness. Everybody was going to be a songwriter. Everybody was going to be a singer.
That's
And
interesting.
and they were just waiting tables for a little while. And man, I thought about that every night. I am just waiting tables for a little while, just like the rest of you. Do I really? It was kind of like some sort of an algebraic equation. Do I believe that you are going to be a singer? Do I believe that you're going to make it as a songwriter? Not so much. Ergo, do you believe that I'm going to make it as a novelist? Probably not.
Right.
And could I be doing this years and years from now? Which is the other question that's so interesting. I interviewed Rafe Fiennes
Mm.
for GQ when I was 35, and he was 35.
Oh, wow.
And we were sitting at some outdoor cafe in London, and the waiter came up and said, and it was like the height of Rafe Fiennes. It was the English patient moment. And the waiter said, "Oh, Mr. Fiennes, you know, I'm an actor too, and I so admire your work, and you're such an inspiration." And Ray Fiennes was really polite, and the guy walked off. And I said, "So, you know, could you still be a waiter? Could you still be doing it at 35? Do you love acting that much that if it hadn't worked out for you, would you still be a waiter?"
Hmm.
Said, "Not a chance."
Oh, interesting.
He said, "I would have given up 15 years ago." I could not have sustained it. The belief in myself and the hard work,
Oh,
I would have packed it up and just gotten another job. And then I think of Deborah Eisenberg,
wow.
who, for all I know, is still picking up shifts. She, when she was publishing in the New Yorker every other week, she was always still a waitress.
Oh, I did not know that. Oh,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah, because she just felt like that was the connection to the part of her that wrote. It kept her open and honest and alive and full of stories. And
I totally get that. I really do. I just thought it was a really great compliment to writing, so much better than teaching. I loved teaching, but I could never teach and write in the same week. It just drains me of the same energy. Whereas waitressing, it takes you're doing it a different time of day, and that time of day is useless to me. 5 to 11 at night. So and you're active and you're racing around and your mind is working in a different way. I can totally see that. Also, I don't know if you felt this way, but I've always had it in the back of my head, like I don't get panicked about running out of money because I think I can always waitress.
do you have this thing like when you walk into a restaurant and they have a, now hiring sign? There's always this tiny little thing in the back of my mind that thinks, wonder if I should get a shift. Just like, Elizabeth McCracken said to me once that every time she walks by an apartment building with a for rent sign,
Uh-huh.
I should go in and just see if it's a nice
Right.
apartment.
Exactly.
That's how I feel about waitressing. Maybe I should just pick up a little.
Yeah.
It never leaves.
I feel that way about all jobs. Any ad job advertisement, I definitely consider it.
Yeah.
Because
And then
I'm used to doing that.
do you have the sense of looking back at yourself at that point in your life and thinking, it's almost like almost seeing yourself in a car crash? I always feel like, oh, I came so close to not making it. I came so close to still being a waitress. And it was nothing but luck. I mean, people are like, oh, you work so hard and you're so talented. And it's like, no, it was luck.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely feel that way. I also feel that way about marrying my husband. I feel much more that way. Like, I don't know that I mean, I was so much less skilled in love, for example, that I just I don't know how I made that leap with him because I wasn't good at it and I didn't trust anybody, and I had been, I don't know, whatever, damaged by my father. And I don't know how I did that. And that's the kind of car crash I look back on and I'm like, just I feel like there's another parallel life where I let him go and I'm alone. And uh that's sort of real to me in some ways because I feel like I came so close.
I also feel like the marriage is the big accomplishment of my life.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
The fact that turned out is the thing that I just think I cannot believe. There's a question that I really love, and I know the answer for both of us. So are you big tippers now?
Yes, that's a little bit of that can, I check my husband's tipping and, he likes to cut it right at, 20%. And I'm like, that dollar difference, like just going up to 22, 25, it's not a big skin off your nose, but it means everything to them. We've had this conversation for like 25 years.
Yeah. And that, well, actually my husband is, I have seen my husband like leave $100 on the table at a Waffle House on the side of the interstate. I mean, that's just who he is. And that is, you want to talk about sexy.
That is very sexy.
Nothing is more moving than to see your man drop a big chunk of change for somebody who's working at a Waffle House. So now that we're talking about our husbands, I want to talk about the whole love triangle aspect, which you've had. This is your second love triangle in a row. Euphoria had a strong triangle, and this has a strong triangle, and I love this one in particular because I don't know which way she's going to go, and both men represent strengths and weaknesses, and is it like a Freudian thing where you're saying, like, I want both, I want both of these qualities?
Oh, interesting.
Just to put you on the couch for a minute.
I don't know. For me, I mean, maybe unconsciously, but I think I wanted to do more of like when it rains it pours kind of thing, because I feel like that happened. You know, you go through these long periods of drought, and then if you had one person interested in you, suddenly there's some chemical that you were releasing that was, you know, and I was interested in that. In fact, I wanted more men, and they made me cut them out.
Are you serious?
I had like at least kind of 3 more men in the mix, either in the past or and they were like, this is enough.
That's
But
so interesting. Well, another thing is I do really believe that grief puts out a pheromone.
oh, fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's been a long time since I was a single person, but if you're really sad and single, your antenna is just way up and pheromones abound. I don't know.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I didn't think about that. But definitely, I mean, she connects these 2 men that she connects with both have had very significant loss. And she, you know, when you're grieving, you talk about the antenna, you know, you just pick it up in other people, and you understand who gets it and who doesn't. And so it's not a coincidence, you know, that these men have had these losses, and they're connecting. She's connecting with both of them in that way. And of course with Oscar's children.
But I really admire the fact that these guys are good. You know, they are different paths and different choices. But they're good. They're basically good guys.
Yeah.
And it is so hard to write something romantic, especially when the romance doesn't swamp the rest of the book. You know, it doesn't become a romance, but there is romantic love, and that's just part of life. I have the hardest time writing about romantic love.
Oh, God, I would never have said that about you. Like, I think of, I love, you know, the Franny older man, I can't remember his name in the novel. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, those are just some really great scenes. And of course, you know, Bel Canto, oh my God.
But
that powerful love.
I drop the ball on romantic love more often than not, and I feel like you really succeed at it.
Oh, thank you. Gosh.
Yeah. So which book was more fun for you, Euphoria or this one? I won't get into all of those before, but you had a really very serious research, big Balkan research for Euphoria.
Yeah.
The whole 9 yards. And then you follow it with a book where you're reaching into your past and into your heart, and you're going to wind up doing a lot of interviews with people who are going to ask you if it's you, and nobody asked if the Margaret Mead character was you.
Oh, it was so heavenly. I loved that about it the very most. Because of course before that I'd written Father of the Rain.
Right.
about a daughter and her alcoholic father. And I wanted to get as far away from the personal story and anybody suspecting that the main character was me. But fun. Let's talk about that for a second, because do you have fun? Do you have fun? You seem like you probably have fun writing novels.
I have fun. Not all the time, not every day.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure. And some a lot more than others.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think about that. Like, I think I want to have some fun. I want to have more fun going
I want
forward.
to have fun. Like, I have an idea right now. I really want to have fun. I don't know. I feel like, so my mom died, I was working on something else after Euphoria. My mom died very suddenly, very much like Casey in the book. And so I wasn't really having fun when I was writing this book. I just was in massive grief. And I don't think I was appreciating how easily it was coming out. And that kind of makes me sad now, because it probably came out more easily than any other book. And yet I don't really remember it. All I remember is getting 2/3 of the way through, which always happens to me, and just feeling like I can't go on. Like I've shut all the doors. There's no exit. I'm just stuck here.
Really?
66.6% of the way through, and it just always like just clockwork right at that point. And I'm like, I'm quitting. It's over. I've wasted 2 years, kind of thing. And then my husband has to tell me that, I said this before, and then I have to say, no, this is entirely a different feeling. And he's like, you said that also, keep going. And I'm like, okay, I will. And so I feel like, okay, so I feel like with that, I don't really remember it. There was a lot of grief, and yet I was really glad that I was getting that grief down on the page. That was helpful to me, because I'd just been writing in journals before I started writing this book, and it wasn't getting me nowhere. But this was, being able to kind of make scene and dialogue out of your grief is a very satisfying thing.
Yeah.
But then with Euphoria, I just had no confidence. I felt like I was crazy to be trying to write this novel taking place in 1933, Papua New Guinea, very loosely based on Margaret Mead, but basically making everything up, because there's no first-hand evidence or history, or any kind of research that you can do about her particular experience, except for this book that she wrote about it. And tiny bits in other things. And so I really had to make it up whole cloth, even though I tried to do a lot of background and a lot of, as much as I could. And I was so embarrassed about that book that I couldn't even call up an anthropologist and tell them what I was doing to ask their advice, because I just felt like I was going to get laughed at. And I knew that would make me lose even more faith in the project. And so there was a lot of weird kind of shame and lack of confidence in that process that made it not fun.
And then you went on and won all those awards, and it became a bestseller. I mean, the book was a smash.
Well,
That's really fascinating. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry that so now you need to write something where you're wide awake and fully present and having fun.
Yeah.
And do you know what that's going to be?
I do. Yeah. It's something very, 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 very different than anything I've done before. And I have little notes and stuff, but like I was saying, I can't, I haven't been in the right mindset to dig in. I also have been, like you, I've been putting together another book of, you have essays coming out, and I have short stories coming out in November. So I've been kind of preoccupied with that too.
There you go. My essays are coming out in November. I'm going to send you an email.
Together.
I'm going to send you an email. We'll do events together.
In person.
Oh, or not. But I'm going to send you an email when we get off, and I'm going to tell you in a sentence what my next novel is going to be about. just so we can check and see if we're writing the same.
Oh, that would be great. Okay, let's do that.
I want to talk to you about reading before
Okay.
we wind this up, because when I was doing my Lily research before this event, there were so many books that I just wanted to say, me too, me too, me too. Okay, one thing that you said in the Times, that when you're writing, your reading becomes like you're a child who's a picky eater and you keep
Mm.
chucking everything out. That's the way my pandemic reading was.
Oh, interesting.
And that's why I kept selling Writers and Lovers, because it was the only book that didn't taste like nickels, which is what I always say. It's like I would put things in my mouth and think,
Uh-huh.
I would get galleys and I would write back to the editor and say, please, I'm out of my mind. This means nothing. I hated this book so much. So for like the first 4 months of the pandemic, the only book I could sell was Writers and Lovers. So everyone in my life read it because it somehow had exactly what I needed, like food. It really was that book.
Oh, that's so nice.
Okay, Lonely Doll.
Lonely Doll. Was that big for you?
Number one favorite. So formative.
So formative and so creepy and dark.
I don't even know if they sell it anymore. It's a picture book by Dare Wright, and it's all photographs that she took about this doll who lives alone, and she's rescued by 2 bears. And it's so perverted and dark and cruel and terrifying. And maybe that's, I mean, I'm not even joking about this. Maybe that's why we keep writing the same books.
Uh-huh.
Because we both cut our teeth on The Lonely Doll.
That was, yeah, those photos, every single photo in that book, it's like half of me was that doll. I mean,
Totally.
Just the feel of those photos. It's quite amazing photography, isn't it?
It is. I was once doing an event at Powell's and they had me locked in the rare book room to do my pre-signing. And when I was finished, the door was locked and I couldn't get out. And so I was shopping and I bought a first edition of The Lonely Doll, which I gave to my sister, because it's such a talisman for us. Okay.
When I had kids, I bought it. I think I read it to them once. And I was so I just
put it up on a shelf.
Do that to them again. I was so intrigued and everything, but I just felt like it was bad for them. And then of course all the stuff came out about her and her.
Yeah. Okay, so To the Lighthouse, another book that we are both obsessed with. But what I want to ask you is, have you ever listened to Nicole Kidman's audio?
No. Is it really amazing?
Oh my God, it's life-changing, life-changing. And I listen to it sometimes just on a loop. Like it doesn't, I'll just drop into it anywhere and listen to it for a couple of hours.
Oh, I'm so glad to know this. Thank you. Wow.
And what's so great is if you look at all the different audio recordings of To the Lighthouse, hers is like an hour and a half shorter than everyone else's because she reads it so fast and such total assuredness.
Wow.
It's
fascinating.
Okay, Shirley Hazard. I haven't read that one.
Well, which one?
The one, wait, hold on.
The one The Evening of the Holiday. The glove.
Yeah, I haven't read that one. And I love Shirley Hazard and I've read the other ones, but I have not read that one.
I haven't. Well, I have to get up and show you.
Please.
Because I probably said this in my thing, but I keep these on my desk at all times. This is yeah, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
I met her once at the Met.
No.
Okay, so I blurbed The Great Fire. Like you can imagine a world in which Shirley Hazard's publisher would have sent a Shirley Hazard book to Ann Patchett. Insane. So I blurbed it.
Not at all insane.
And then I was at the Met with a friend of mine, and he was like, "Oh, Shirley Hazard." And she had, of course, no idea who I was or that I'd blurbed her book or anything. And I was just,
Oh, wow.
it was a beautiful moment.
And have you read Transit of Venus?
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did you, there's the new story collection, her collected short fiction.
Yeah.
Have you read Vittorio? I think Vittorio is the very, very, very best short story that she ever wrote. I mean,
see, now I have things to do.
and it's, you're going to love that short story. Oh my God.
My Name is Lucy Barton.
Oh,
Which again, I'm just cribbing off of lists of yours. That's the book I want to write.
me too.
That's the book that it's not very often that I read a book. I mean, I read books and I love them and admire them.
Yeah.
But that's a book that I just think I just want to write that book.
Totally agree. Totally agree. I just think it's an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah.
I cannot read that book too many times. It's just the way it unfolds and yeah, I just think she's doing so many incredible things there.
The lightness of her touch, the assuredness of her work is amazing.
Yeah. That voice.
I feel that way about Old Filth.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say, have you read Old Filth?
Are you serious?
I am dead serious. The only book I was just about to say, have you read it?
Because we are the same person. Because of The Lonely Doll. I really believe this, Lily.
Okay, what about Judy Bloom though? Because she was another just like outsized, reason for me becoming a writer. Did you? No.
Catholic school, they never let us read Judy Bloom.
Oh, fascinating. That's right. And she was really banned and all kinds of things.
Yeah. I remember I love Judy. I'm such a fan of her, and she has a bookstore and she's a wonderful person. Yeah. I read her books too late, and it's like I just missed the bus.
Yeah. I mean, my mother they were like coming out in hardcover, and they were just, my mother got them for me instantly. I don't know how she knew. Well, except that the second one, It's Not the End of the World, she gave me right before. It's about a family who gets a divorce, and it's about a girl whose parents are breaking up, and my mother gave it to me like 4 months before she left my father, like just very strategic. And yeah. I like, it literally saved my life. Like I nobody else I knew had gotten divorced.
How old were you?
I was 11.
I was like 4 when my parents got divorced. So that in a way, I think that's easier. But, when you think about it, when we were growing up, there really was no such thing as YA.
I know.
There weren't a lot of middle grade books. There were more middle grade books. But then, I always say I went from Little House on the Prairie to John Updike.
That's really interesting. My mother found a few, like I have a few books that I read that nobody else has heard of. Like I'm not kidding. One of them is called something like Remove the Plastic Coating a Little at a Time. Have you ever heard of that book?
No, I've not.
Oh no. My God, it was like one of my Bibles post Judy Bloom. And it was like, it's super, super dark about like a depressed teenager, maybe having a friendship with an older man or something like that. And then, anyway, there's another one that was huge for me. And they're the only two that I can think of.
Go Ask Alice. That was
I read that way too early.
Yeah.
I think I was like 8 when I read that book. I mean, honestly, it did its trick. Like, never did I ever touch anything, harder than pot. Like book scared the shit out of me.
I feel like this has been one of, I feel like this is one of those evenings that now that we've come to the end, I think, I wonder if anybody else enjoyed this.
I wonder if anybody is still here, is what I wonder.
They all clicked off. They were like, oh, this is just Ann and Lily having a private conversation. It would be
I
rude.
wrote this book, by the way.
It's so good. So good. It was my favorite. Did you read Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason?
No.
It just came out. You'll love it.
Oh, I got to write it down right away.
Word. Yeah, Sorrow and Bliss. It's you know, it's way harsher than this.
Mhm.
It was the only book that I've read that I thought, yes, this falls into the category of writers and lovers. I also want to say I was talking, Amor Tolls.
I don't know him, no, but I know of him, of course. And
We were talking the other day, and we talk a lot about book business and touring and paperback touring, and it gives this whole idea that, obviously a lot of people who show up to paperback events have read the book, right?
yeah.
So they're not necessarily coming on to buy the book, but he
Right.
says, you keep showing up because the people who love you and love your book and come to the paperback events, then they say to their neighbor, oh my gosh, I saw Lily King and she was so amazing. And oh, have you not read that? Have you not read Writers and Lovers? He's like, it has this completely different trickle down, spreading out
Mm-hmm.
purpose to it. And it's so much more fun in paperback because you feel like you're talking to people who know what you're talking about. I interviewed Chang Ray Lee last week, and it was great, but I just thought, this is an enormous book and it's been out a week, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to talk about the nuts and bolts of the plot.
Yeah, no, it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah.
And there's a level of comfort that you have, when your book's out in paperback, and I don't know, it's kind of been defined and you've moved past that. And I don't know, you settle into it, kind of just an older relationship, with it than when it first comes out. Yeah.
You can't be hurt in paperback.
Yeah, that's true. It's so true. Let's
Yeah.
hope. Knock on wood.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to wrap it up. I enjoyed this almost to an inappropriate amount. And we're going to do this again.
I know, next week.
Is it next week?
I know. Can you believe that it's March 7th, right?
Is it? Hold on. Let me look.
I think it is.
It really is. It's March 7th. Wow. Okay. So Lily and I are going to be in Santa Barbara on March 7th. And we're going to have a different version of this.
All right. It's going to be about Anne. I don't know if she's there for you guys.
Actually, a lot of this was about me. So what that says is that on March 7th, a lot of it's going to have to be about you. And we'll talk more. By then, you will have listened to the Nicole Kidman
I sure will.
Lighthouse, which is going to change your life.
So exciting.
This is so much fun.
I loved it. Thank you.
I love the book. I love you. I look forward to seeing you next week. And I'm going to email you right now and tell you what my new novel's about.
Okay, I'm really scared.
Okay, you should be.
Does it have a murder in it?
No.
Okay.
No, I have no interest in murder. Zero.
I didn't either. But here I go.
Here you go.
I'm telling you.
Thank you.
Okay. I'll tell you later. Bye.
Okay. Bye.
Thank you, Anne.